And how's it going, everyone? It is Skullzi here with the latest and the greatest gaming news. Today I wanted to break down another 5 rumors involving The Elder Scrolls 6. We will break each rumor down together, right down to its source, try to figure out if the rumor is most likely true or faker than that red water skooma, and if it is true we'll talk about what it could mean for the future of The Elder Scrolls 6. This is the second episode of a new series here on my channel where we'll break down each and every rumor involving The Elder Scrolls 6 that we can find, so let's not waste any more time and get to that Elder Scrolls 6 information. 1. The Elder Scrolls 6 Argonia. This rumor is very similar to the Elder Scrolls 6 Valenwood rumor that I broke down in a previous video. Unlike the supposed leaked Bethesda E3 document which the Valenwood rumor arose from, there seemed to be no 100% point of origin in which we could trace this Argonia rumor down to. After a long time of searching though, I was finally able to find it. After a bunch of digging, I ended up narrowing down the rumor to its source. The source of this Elder Scrolls 6 Argonia rumor comes from an article on the Christian Post, which seems like kind of an odd source for a major leak involving the Elder Scrolls 6. If this wasn't a huge red flag already, then just wait for it because there's more. This article was written way back on December 4th, 2014, so it's one of the OG Elder Scrolls 6 rumors, again very similar to the Valenwood rumor. Although unlike the Valenwood rumor, the Christian Post provides literally no source for this Argonia rumor. That's right, not a single damned source is cited. Instead, they just treat us like idiots by saying, word on the streets says that the Elder Scrolls 6 will be called The Elder Scrolls 6 Argonia, and that the game will take place in Blackmarsh. Word on the streets. Okay, parappa rapper. They also state that the game will coincide with what we'd expect of the Bethesda release cycle, saying that the Elder Scrolls 6 will take several years to make. The Christian Post then tries to back their own story up by making up some shit and saying several other tech sites have their own sources too, which all also state that the Elder Scrolls 6 will take place in Blackmarsh. Only again, the Christian Post didn't source or link a single one of these sites, except for this one site right here, the Tehran Chronicle or something. But when we try to use the link provided literally by the Christian Post themselves, for some reason the link takes you to some total random unrelated website that changes almost every time you click this link. I probably have a virus now, thanks. And when you try to Google or find the Tehran Chronicle or whatever it is, there is no trace of this site whatsoever, which brings us to my verdict. The Elder Scrolls 6 Argonia rumor is total bullshit, and it crawled its way into existence from the wreckage of the literal clickbait that the Christian Post created from this article. This article came to us back at a time when anything related to the Elder Scrolls 6 was almost guaranteed views and clicks, so this site decided to make up a fake Elder Scrolls 6 rumor or leak or something, listing fake sources that they themselves made up, hoping that it would make this article look credible enough for other people to share and hopefully go viral for a bit. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. It worked. But no, this rumor is false. Let's all stop talking about it now, please. The Elder Scrolls 6 Argonia is not legit. 2. The Elder Scrolls 6 will offer VR support. This rumor stems from a variety of places, but there is some solid evidence to suggest that this might actually be very possible. Bethesda Game Studios has shown a great interest in VR technology lately, making Skyrim and Fallout 4 VR compatible and pushing several advertising campaigns to promote the game's new VR friendliness specifically. With VR finding its footing and growing consistently by having constant improvements from several different developers, it seems like VR could very well soon be a very common thing in the gaming industry. With Bethesda showing a definite interest in VR, even creating entire games that revolve around VR completely, such as the recent Wolfenstein Cyberpilot for example, I can almost guarantee that the Elder Scrolls 6 will have VR capability at some point, even if it's not directly at launch. Things like trying to make VR work with all of a game's deep and dynamic varying gameplay mechanics would make the gameplay development process take a bit longer and get a bit more complicated. So I'd expect Bethesda to release the Elder Scrolls 6 without VR support at first, that way they don't have to add to the already lengthy dev time it takes to make a game as massive as the Elder Scrolls. With this in mind though, I'd expect VR support to come maybe a year or two later. Another piece of evidence that shows Bethesda Game Studios' interest in a future of VR-friendly games is back when they acquired Bethesda Game Studios Dallas in July of 2018. The staff at Bethesda Game Studios Dallas is very proficient in VR gaming development and are the main studio within Bethesda that is responsible for making both Skyrim and Fallout 4 VR friendly. So the fact that Bethesda acquired and set up an entire dev studio that specializes in VR is a very clear indication that Bethesda Game Studios sees VR as something they want to be a part of their future games, and that includes both Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6, meaning this rumor is most likely true. 3. The Elder Scrolls 6 will be Skyrim 2. Sort of. I'd say spoiler alert, but Skyrim has been out for long enough now, and although by the end of Skyrim you bring an end to the Civil War one way or another, this doesn't solve the Thalmor problem for Skyrim or the rest of the Empire, or whatever is left of it, because by the end of the events within Skyrim, the Empire, including Cyrodiil, Skyrim, and the rest of the nations of Tamriel are all, at the most part, being invaded or under major threat by the forces of the Thalmor from the Somerset Isles. The Empire had to sign a massive treaty just to get a very shaky ceasefire, and this treaty was definitely not in their benefit. It seems very likely that the Imperial Empire could crumble away at any moment, leaving a dark and questionable future for Tamriel, making its various regions and races even more vulnerable to Thalmor invasion and occupation. This almost seems like the perfect backdrop of the Elder Scrolls 6, setting the tone of the game world almost immediately and being somewhat of a continuation of the story told within Skyrim, a nation that somehow settled its differences long enough to come together to address an enemy from outside its borders. The only issue here is that anybody that knows how Bethesda Game Studios does things knows that the Elder Scrolls 6 isn't going to be Skyrim 2. While elements of the story within the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim are sure to be within the Elder Scrolls 6 and maybe even continued within the game's story itself, the Elder Scrolls 6 will have its own identity, its own tone, unique to itself and separate from Skyrim. This rumor most likely came from websites writing articles that twisted the words of Pete Hines in order to type up some sort of clickbait bullshit. On June 24th, 2015, Pete Hines told The Telegraph in an interview that most publishers would have spit out Skyrim 2 a year or two after the release of Skyrim, and that Bethesda Game Studios doesn't work on games quite like that. They like to take their times and make sure that the game is done right. Some websites decided that Pete Hines was actually saying that the Elder Scrolls 6 would be Skyrim 2 somehow, and away everyone went with the clickbait bullshit. Obviously, Pete Hines was just sort of memeing when he said this. He was just making a joke at the expense of other publishers who just push out carbon copy sequels of successful games a year or two later, these sequels essentially being dull copy-pastes of their predecessors. Pete Hines was saying Bethesda literally does the opposite of that, yet these clickbait articles tried to say that the Elder Scrolls 6 would somehow be Skyrim 2. Yeah, right, nice try. The rumor is false. Duh. 4. The Elder Scrolls 6 will feature an invasion from the mysterious faraway lands of Akavir. Ah, this old rumor, I am quite familiar with this one. I shared it on my channel in a previous video a while ago, and this was one of the more exciting Elder Scrolls 6 rumors of its time. It fueled a lot of speculation, especially because it seemed to have been confirmed by Bethesda themselves, as the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind was the direct and official source of this rumor. The rumor goes like this. Within Morrowind is a priest known as Loras Serrano, located within the Eldrune Temple. It is said that this NPC has some very specific dialogue foreshadowing the events that will take place during the Elder Scrolls 6. When asked about Akavir, Laura Serrano Peppers says that I've heard rumors that Akavir is making preparations to invade us again. They're only waiting for the Empire to collapse in a civil war or some other crisis. We'd certainly need a Oddheader then. If we had one, maybe we could travel to Akavir before the invasion and weaken or stop it. Whoa, right? Civil war? The collapse of the Empire? Sounds like the events of Skyrim, doesn't it? Wrong. That's right, wrong, because even though this rumor seems legit, it fooled a ton of people, including myself. After doing my video covering this rumor, something just didn't seem quite right. I felt like I was missing something really important here, like I only had a small piece of the puzzle, so I decided to do some massive digging into this situation. And using a custom search engine code that a friend helped me figure out that allowed me to look up specific words in a very specific order with a very specific context, I found the actual real source of this in-game dialogue. The mod in which this dialogue comes from, because this dialogue was not in the base Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind game. It is part of the less generic NPCs mod for Morrowind, and thanks to my subscriber's search engine skillset, he was able to trace this exact dialogue back to this website. This dialogue was added into the game entirely by this mod, proving this rumor false and it was never in Morrowind in the first place and thus was never included in the base game lore by Bethesda. I quickly put up a video correcting myself and proving this rumor false, and the rest is history. Who knows how long it could have taken the community to debunk this rumor if it wasn't for some of my subscribers. Thanks again for all the help, you all are awesome. 5. The music of the Elder Scrolls 6 won't be the same. The music of the Elder Scrolls franchise has been a very important and integral part of the experience. Each and every memory I have from basically each and every Elder Scrolls game is backed up by an amazing and nostalgic track right alongside it. This music was brought to us by the legendary composer Jeremy Soule, who has been composing the music for the Elder Scrolls games ever since the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, even composing the overall literal theme for the Elder Scrolls franchise itself. It is believed that the Elder Scrolls 6 is in early stages years of development at this time. However, Jeremy Soule has publicly stated that he isn't working on the soundtrack for The Elder Scrolls 6, and in fact, he hasn't even been contacted by Bethesda Game Studios and asked to work on the game. Which is definitely troubling to say the least, as the music provided by Jeremy Soule has helped forge the identity of The Elder Scrolls in the minds of members of the community all over the world. If another composer makes the music for The Elder Scrolls 6, would it feel quite the same? Most people assume if it's not Jeremy Soule, that Inan Zur would take up the mantle at composing the music for The Elder Scrolls 6. Inan Zur is a very experienced musical composer within the gaming industry, doing work for several studios including BioWare and even Bethesda in the past. Inan Zur composed the soundtrack for Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, along with The Elder Scrolls Blades as well, so having such a recent and close working relationship with Bethesda Game Studios, Inan Zur seems to be the most likely candidate to be chosen as a composer for The Elder Scrolls 6 if Jeremy Soule wasn't chosen. And while I highly respect Inan Zur and his work, after all, he is literally one of my favorite composers within the industry, I wonder if he can match the amazing tone that Jeremy Soule has already set within the Elder Scrolls franchise. Jeremy Soule has created some nostalgic masterpieces, and Inan Zur would have some very interesting shoes to fill should he take Jeremy Soule's place. This rumor is definitely plausible, by the way, as we have no evidence one way or another to either prove nor deny this rumor, other than Jeremy Soule stating that he hasn't been contacted by Bethesda yet. Keep in mind though, as it is just as possible that Bethesda hasn't contacted Jeremy Soule to make the music yet because they aren't at that point within the development process for The Elder Scrolls 6. But only time will tell one way or another. Personally though, I'm hoping that Jeremy Soule comes back, as he has never failed us in the past, and the Elder Scrolls franchise has some of the best music out there. That is all of the rumors that I wanted to break down today, but as always, I want to know what you have to say about all of this. Let me know down in the comments below, and if your comment wins the intro, then I may get featured in a future video. Be sure to like this video and subscribe if you want to stay in the know when it comes to the latest and the greatest gaming news. Follow me over on Twitter for the latest channel updates and other random stuff. Come over to the community Discord chat server, where there is always an awesome and active conversation and speculation taking place. Be sure to check out Loot Drop, the official Skullzi merchandise site over on Teespring, where you can get a Skullzi t-shirt or a bullshit capacity meter t-shirt or even a coffee mug to let everyone know that your bullshit capacity meter is always running at 0%. And if you want to have your hand in providing future content and having access to unique and awesome awards, then consider subscribing to the community over on Patreon for as low as $1, or join the channel here on YouTube as an exclusive channel member. Links for all of these awesome things are down in the description below, and as always, thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in next time when a gigantic skooma squirrel makes an unexpected return.
It just works.